Hello and welcome back. We will start with our third panel of today, which is about the citizen-centric collaboration on reaching the sustainable development goals in cities. And the third panel is going to be moderated by Pontus Westerberg, Program Manager at UN Habitat, the United Nations Agency for Sustainable Cities. And I want to make a quick connection with the last panel where was mentioned Minecraft as a potential tool for better participatory planning. And actually UN Habitat has, I think already in 2010, produced the guidelines for how to use Minecraft for participatory planning and in urban design and governance. And Pontus also has just launched a really interesting smart city related challenge, Climate Smart Cities, which is about involving different innovation organizations to offer their solutions to reduce carbon emissions while also providing a better quality of life. So now I'm going to go ahead and give word to Pontus.
Thank you, Lil, for that introduction, and it's nice to see so many people here. I really enjoyed that previous panel. And as Lil said, we have a program which is called Block by Block, which I actually used to run for a number of years, where we use Minecraft for public participation in urban design. And we have a number of guides on how to use Minecraft for public participation. So if Philip or anyone else here is interested in that, I can share some of the links to that in the chat, and also happy to connect us to our team that is now running that program. But now I'm running a program on which we call people-centered smart cities, which is really about how to involve residents in smart city projects. And this the topic of the next panel here is really close to my heart, which is so it's about citizen collaboration, how to involve citizen in achieving the sustainable development goals in cities. And of course our focus is on Sustainable Development Goal 11, which is about making citizen communities sustainable and inclusive. And we have a fantastic panel here. First, we have Krista Kampus, who is Head of Strategy Development and International Cooperation at the Tallinn Strategy Center. Then we have Karlis Goldstein, who is Energy Policy Assistant of the European Commission's Energy Commissioner. Then we have Hadi Ghanbari, who's a postdoctoral researcher at the Finnish Center of Excellence. Then Teemu Peltonen, who's a project manager at Smart and Wise Turku. And finally, Einari Kisel, who is Head of Partnerships and Strategy at the Finnish Center for Excellence, and also a member of the Supervisory Board of the Estonian energy company. So really interesting rounded panel here, and I'm really looking forward to hearing about the different perspectives that they will give us on this interesting topic. So what we will do is we'll go around, and each of the panelists will have a few minutes to introduce the topic, tell us a little bit about their work, how it relates to the SDGs, and how they're working to ensure citizen collaboration in that. And then I would like to invite the audience to ask questions. Please use the chat. And I will moderate and ask and make sure that our panelists will be able to answer the questions. I also have a number of questions that I would like to ask for the panelists. But without further ado, let's start with Krista Kampus. Over to you, Krista.
Yes, thank you and good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Very interesting discussions. I followed the last panel discussions as well, and I would like to actually somewhat to continue what has been discussed there. About myself, yes, I'm working at the Tallinn Strategy Center. I have been involved in sustainability and climate cooperation for more than 10 years. I coordinated Baltic Sea countries' collaboration on climate and sustainable development. And now I'm the head of EU and the International Cooperation Department, and I'm also executive director of Tallinn European Green Capital 2023 next year. So we are in the middle of extremely busy times right now. When it comes to the topic of this panel, for me, as the person who has been working with sustainable development goals and sustainability for many years now, it is very important that when we discuss about the smart city issues, new technologies, innovation, using of data, that ordinary people are not forgotten. Because digitally speaking, Estonia in general and Tallinn also is a very smart city, but so far it seems to me that this smart has mainly meant by using latest technology or providing top-down information and e-services. So for me, I think we have been too focused on smartness part, but we have forgotten sustainability part. And I would say that for me, smart city is not always sustainable, but sustainable city is always smart. So I think that instead now of focusing maybe this smartness and this, let's say, top-down provision of services and information, we really have to focus more on participatory processes, engagement, and co-creation. Because when it comes to sustainability principles, then the most important principle is that no one is left behind. And I think that's why we need to build up and focus on participation, which is seen as a process that builds on diversity and collective intelligence, because I think we have to use not only smart technologies, but also smartness of all the people we have and stakeholders we have in this society. And this is for me very important. And I also think that there is an urgent need to fill, this gap of smartness and between sustainability. And maybe there is therefore also need to somehow to redefine the smart city concept. And then maybe, we have to see it more from sustainability, let's say, perspective, rather than technology and digitalization perspective. But I will elaborate that topic more later, and giving now floor to other panelists as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Krista. I mean, I think that's a really interesting perspective. What I see a lot is that there's also a focus on, let's say, big tech or frontier tech, and these grand kind of narratives around technology. And sometimes we forget that actually, the tools that we find the most useful in our daily life are simple communication tools like WhatsApp or Signal or email or Teams, Zoom, like these kind of platforms. Very often maybe there's in this grand narrative, there's big data and AI and blockchain, and we really want to explore that kind of stuff without really thinking that actually building a more basic digital capacity, for example, to collect data, to understand environmental issues, as you were talking about, is the first step. So I completely agree, and I think that's a very important perspective there. Next, let me give the floor to Karlis. Over to you, Karlis.
Hello and good afternoon. Thank you very much, Pontus, and thanks very much for this interesting intro, Krista, which I completely subscribe to, because I feel that it's really about the people and what is important for them. What do they actually use? We have, just to recall you, in Europe, 186 million residential buildings, And that is a lot because a big part of them is multi-apartment buildings. So just to give you the scope, the majority of people live in urban areas, and that figure is projected to grow. So here at the EU, we are looking at how to address this big part of our society, which is, you know, the underlying matrix, the built environment, the schools, the hospitals, the workplaces, the places we live in. And of course, one of the big challenges for us is how to make them more sustainable. Therefore, we have conjured up a concept called zero emission buildings. And this is enshrined in the latest revision of the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. It came out in December last year, so I suggest each and every one of you has a look at it and also gives us the feedback, because right now it's entering into negotiations with the French presidency, reaching to have a general approach already, so a principal agreement between the member states. And by the end of this year, this new piece of legislation should be agreed with the parliament as well. So hot discussions ongoing there. But where does the transition actually start? And here I mean any type of sustainable transition. Is it really about the national support measures, municipal planning, maybe about research and knowledge transfer within the sector? Or maybe it's about the utilities, the big power companies that supply the energy, and the big producers of the products. Maybe it's the financial side, you know, the banks, the financial institutions, or is it the people themselves who need to have the right attitudes and knowledge? And I would say that we need all of these elements, because if any one of those critical points in a chain is missing, then it's impossible to improve the urban environment at scale to the extent that we would want to. So, of course, the first point that I would like to mention here as a possible way out is demo projects. And these are great between different towns and cities, because first of all, you try out an idea, a concept, and by doing that, you develop actually a business model and possibly technology. And this creates a new space, a new kind of a sandbox where other kids can come in and play as well. Secondly, it shows that something is doable, it's possible. You've tried it, you've made it work. And third of all, the important point I think that is important to communicate externally is that it reduces the risk perception. You know, as long as you dream about something, you haven't done it, it's a black box. You don't know what's waiting there. But once you've actually done it step by step, the financial institutions can come and back you up as well, because you know that it's feasible. For example, in the building segment, I can show you a practical example. I mean, let's imagine again that you're living in a multi-apartment building. So maybe you received your energy bill for December, you know, huge, out of proportion. Or maybe you have read about the European Green Deal, or maybe you just care about the security of your own energy supply. So let's say that you think that your heating within your apartment with an individual or local solution, especially with fossils, is a no-go. Or think that your home becomes cold within a quarter of an hour after the heating has been turned down. This means that it's seriously leaking, and you should be worried when the winter comes. So if you're renting, you know, about just to illustrate the complexity, you first need to go and speak to the apartment owner. If you're the owner, you need to go and convince the co-owners within the multi-apartment building to do something about it. And if you're on the board of representatives of the association, you have a huge universe in front of you. You have getting the finance from the owners, from the financial institutions, from public support. Each of them will have their own set of requirements. Plus then there's a regulation and municipal level that you need to adhere to. So what I'm saying is that it's really, really complex to do things within an urban environment for the single person. It's because of regulation and often the associated costs. And I can't really stress this enough. The importance of the need for having an informed societal debate around making things more sustainable and about the energy transition. So this is where I see a really big role for the municipal authorities and the citizen organizations, because they can take this complexity and break it down to manageable pieces. And whether be it a one-stop shop for renovation, a local appliance sciences and engineering competence center, or a local government info point, all of these elements have a really important role to play within the civil society. And I would end here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Karlis. I'm actually right now in the process of, or I just bought an apartment in Barcelona, and I'm in the process of investigating the possibility of getting solar panels on there. It's not the easiest to understand the different regulation, the costs, the different grants that might be available from the national government and from the municipal government, and also, of course, convincing the neighbors in the community, etc. So I completely really resonates what you're talking about. Would you so the new standard that you were talking about that's out for consultation, maybe you can put it in the chat so that the participants here can see it. And then also, please, all of you listening in, please feel free to put any questions that you might have in the chat, and I'll put them to the participants, or to the speakers rather, the panelists. So next up we have Hadi Ghanbari. Over to you, Hadi.
Thank you, Pontus, and I would like to say hello to other panelists and of course our audience. And I'm really honored to be here and sharing some of my thoughts with you today. Well, considering that I am an information systems researcher, so my statement was mainly focused on achieving sustainability through stakeholder-centric innovation or digital innovation in smart cities. So basically it refers to how we can design and use software-intensive services in societies to achieve sustainable development goals. So, well, there are lots of discussions that in smart cities, we usually or mainly adopt a technology-centric approach to urban development. So we have been using lots of digital services or lots of ICT services and digitalization for developing smart cities. Well, this of course has lots of benefits. It might help us or enable us to improve the functionality of cities and maybe at the same time achieve higher economic growth. But the problem is that sometimes we underestimate the importance of social and environmental issues and responsibilities which are associated with design and use of these digital services. So if you want to make sure that our cities are both smart and sustainable at the same time, we must develop digital solutions that they are sustainable themselves. So basically they can evolve over time, but at the same time, they promote sustainability in individual and societal levels. So one potential solution is to complement the use of ICT and digital technologies with stakeholder-centric approaches that help us to understand the actual needs and expectations of different groups of stakeholders in cities and in societies in general. But now we have two problems here. So the first problem is that we have been talking a lot about using digital services or using ICT or digitalization projects in general to address sustainable development goals. But we have paid, I would say, very little attention to how sustainable those systems or digital innovations are themselves. This is a very serious issue because these low quality digital innovations are basically a source for huge financial, social, and environmental costs for societies. Just to give you an idea of how severe are these costs, there is a recent report from 2020 which estimates that the quality issues of software-intensive systems imposes something over $300 billion US dollars to societies or to global economy every year. So digital smart city solutions we develop must be sustainable themselves in the first place. And the second problem is that we talk a lot about engaging citizens or stakeholder-centric approaches to developing smart city solutions, but we pay little attention to engaging stakeholders with these services after they are developed and deployed. So basically, we don't pay that much attention that how these services are used in the long run. This is very important because we really need to make sure that if we invest a huge amount of money and resources and efforts in building smart city solutions or digital solutions, then of course we really need to make sure that how these services are used and how we can improve them better to sustain in the long run. For example, in one of recent studies that we are trying to look at the opportunities of using urban analytics for basically understanding how well these services are used and how they should be improved to address emerging needs of citizens or stakeholders. So I think ideally smart city solutions that they are designed and developed based on stakeholders' needs and also based on sustainable development goals, they can also serve as a platform for promoting and improving sustainability in cities. Of course, one big challenge in stakeholder-centric digital innovation is to motivate an inclusive and diverse group of stakeholders to participate in developing and using projects. So personally, I think we need to take a couple of steps to address these challenges. So the first one is that we really need to constantly improve the understanding and digital competences of our citizens. So the more our citizens understand about digital innovations and their benefits and how they can affect the sustainability of cities, then there is a higher chance that they would actually participate in developing solutions and using them on a daily basis. So basically, we must empower our citizens to make more informed decisions and self-regulate their behavior. Second, we need to show the stakeholders how their participation and the solutions that are outcome of those participation will concretely address the needs, their needs or improve their life. So this might be especially beneficial for people who are not participating in these processes, minorities, or let's say marginalized groups of citizens, to try to have more motivation to actually participate in designing these digital innovations and use them on the line. So basically, if I want to recap, I would say that this is my personal belief that we must aim for complementing the capabilities of human, I think the collective intelligence that we talk about, and also the capabilities which brought to us by modern technology. And then if we can combine these two together, then we might be able to actually develop digital solutions that are sustainable themselves and also help us to promote sustainable behavior in societies. So that's all from my side.
Thanks a lot, Hadi. I think this is a really interesting topic. I think we'll get some more chance to drill into it later, but I'm always kind of curious why these consumer products that we have in our hands, I don't know if you can, like the mobile phones, you know, there's so much user research that go into this, but somehow the larger systems that are used kind of on enterprise level or on city levels in some of these smart city solutions, they just don't have the level of usability, the level of kind of user research, which is, and it's really interesting how some kind of digital solutions really focused on user research and some other ones are not. I'd love to drill in a little bit more into that later, but let me now give the floor to Teemu Peltonen from Smart and Wise Turku. Over to you, Teemu.
Thank you, Pontus, and good afternoon, everyone. In the city of Turku, we do quite a lot of citizen-centric collaboration on various levels. We have all these web-based services that you can voice your opinions on, and we do a lot of public hearings and public webinars, and also there are quite many pilots done with the Smart City Edge that are tested in Turku, and we are gathering the feedback from those as well. But as far as the citizen collaboration goes, it's the hardest part of that is actually reaching and getting the opinions on my end, and that's the problem in Turku, and it's very dependent of the topics also. So I have like a few examples on our citizen opinion website, where we had a question about what kind of digital services people dream about, what would make their life so much better, and there was only 13 responses to that. Then on another topic about bicycle network plan, there was 388 responses. So it's about topics that make quite a big difference, getting actually the citizens to collaborate on subjects. And I think there are like some topics that are very heated. I myself work on mostly on traffic and parking solutions. And that makes that those are the topics that are usually very heated. There are quite a big opposite ends to that. It's usually the bicycle riders versus car owners that are fighting over the space on the streets. And for example, Turku, that is very old city with very limited on-street space, to actually get it to the use of the people is very important. And to limit the traffic, it's not only about the Green Deal and the actual environmental issues, but actually how good is it to live in a city so that we can get the cars out of the main areas. We have had quite a few researches, master's theses, pilots, and all kinds of events on those, and people are quite eager to participate on some level, but it quite heavily depends on like how many pilots you have running. For example, last summer we were running this low carbon transit on mobility hubs project that we ran 6 events online to actually collaborate citizens, stakeholders, companies, and so on, to get the ideas what would actually benefit the city and the traffic and the parkings. How could we actually make the transportation in the city more low carbon? And those were very popular. We had 500 participants in them all together, and from them we gathered 150 recognized user stories and user needs. And based on those, we had 9 pilots running in our city during the summer, some of which were very popular, some of which weren't, but we got quite a good information on those. But the big problem with these is that when you do a short pilot, actually getting people to use it, to get used to it, usually takes time. And when there are multiple pilots running at the same time, some of them aren't used that much, and the actual facts about things aren't as clear as they should be in the end when we are doing the final reports. So that is the hard part. Even with all the peer campaigning we did on those pilots, we didn't get as much users as we wanted. So when creating smart cities, there has to be, of course, the idea what the users are going to gonna be doing with it and what's the citizen opinion. But in the long run, there are quite many solutions that have to be also like given from above, because we have certain limitations, we have certain goals to meet. And for example, when we are talking about parking solutions like in Turku, we are trying to actually make the space more livable by reducing car parking spots on street, but that's very heated subject. And if we take like every citizen opinion too seriously on these, we would never be able to increase the living space in the city center. So these systems like, well, for example, Barcelona has their Superblocks. We had last summer street experience with the same concept, and it was very popular, but before it started, there was quite a heavy criticism about preventing cars going through some streets in the city center. But all in all, I think the collaboration is very important. We do it a lot, but there has to be some kind of balance with the actual design and seeing the goals where we are heading. And also, like Francesca Pria mentioned in the first panel, that there is like a need for the cities to build the infrastructure and actually have like some sort of base to build the actual needs, that the services for the people, and then ask for the people what they need, what we can use this for is also important. So like without any example what we can do, it's very hard for the city. I can understand it's very hard for the citizens to understand what can be done. So we need a certain level of showcasing also in that sense. But in the long run, after we pilot things and start to think about scaling up them, then we need to actual feedback, what is actually useful, what we should go in for.
Thank you,
Yes.
Teemu. You raised a lot of important issues here also, and the tension between participation and being able to make actual decisions that might in the longer term improve the lives of many people in the community. And I think the example of the Superblocks is super interesting. I live in Barcelona, and it's a famous example, but they've only been able so far to implement 3 Superblocks out of, I think, 85 planned, because of this issue of the tension between car drivers, pedestrians, cyclists, etc. And many people still want to be able to park in front of their house, while they might also want to be able to walk their dog in a Superblock. So there's some really interesting tensions there. I think it'd be good to explore this. Let's do another round to discuss some of these issues. But first, let me give the floor to our final panelist here, Einari, Kisel. Over to you, Anyari.
Thank you, Pontus. And I'm actually very glad that I'm the last one in the list, because I'd say there is a lot of points that has been raised already by all of the previous speakers here, and also in the previous panels as well. Well, I'm a very practical person in my life, and I'm just thinking always from the perspective of the people in all of these big, say, objectives that have been set by the UN, by the EU, and by the governments, and so on and so forth. Well, if I'm thinking about the sustainability, then the question that always comes up actually with the discussion is that, well, okay, if I would like to, for example, renovate my house, where do I start from? And then you just have to, as you mentioned, Pontus, let's say you have to dig into the different kind of bureaucracy. You have to dig into the, say, finding the renovators. You have to find the persons who will do all the analysis for you, also for the best solutions, and so on and so forth. The question that actually is in my mind is that, well, in practice, all of this information is already kind of available. But the usual people don't get to this information so easily. As also Hadi mentioned that, well, information is there, but people just don't know it. And if they even get the information, they don't know how to deal with that. So Karlis also mentioned, let's say, all of these possibilities that how the municipalities can actually create the one-stop shops, for example, for the people where they could get the information and go forward with that. But I would even go further from that. Why not that the municipalities would be as the leaders or the initiators of all of these sustainability or, say, renovations, for example, of the houses? Because if you think of this, say, if all of these houses will try to do their own work, then it would be, say, very information intensive, and there was a possibility for a lot of mistakes. Say, at the moment, the municipalities are in a very comfortable position. They just have to approve the permits and say that, well, okay, you can do such kind of renovations, and say, then you have to work through all of these bureaucracies and so on. But what if the municipalities would come to the citizens with a solution, the full solution? So one of the pilot projects that we are running today together with Tallinn City Strategic Center is about the digital energy auditing of the houses. We have already actually the digital twin that is basis for the housing registry in Estonia. We have all the energy data, hourly electricity data, for example, for all houses, all customers in Estonia. We have the heating data for all of these customers. It is all somewhere in the databases. And it would be actually very easy to gather this data and to create the energy audit or energy certificate for the houses. So this is just a small bit where actually we can go even further where we stand today. And we are trying today such kind of approach with the Tallinn. But now we would like to go even further from that. Now the pilot that we are working now with the city of Võru in Estonia is about the way how the municipality would take for example, a quarter of a city and support the development of all of the practicalities for the renovation, gathering all the energy information, for example, the financing information, the planning information, and running basically the change in this area. So in order not to be as a one-stop shop for the renovators, it would be actually in the position of a leader to change the whole environment in the city. So this is something that we are working now and one of the pilots in the Finnish Center for Smart Cities. And we will look forward how we would actually come out from that. Where are the problems for such kind of approach, where we could actually create a very different kind of approach for all of these kind of big challenges on, increasing the sustainability of the cities in terms of the heating, for example. If you think of that the 60% of the energy consumed by the households today in the European Union goes for heating, then the renovation of houses is something that needs to be tackled in a big way. It's a kind of elephant in the room. And if the municipalities can rethink their position in this system, in this logic, then we can actually do very big changes much faster than we can think of at the moment. So this is for an introduction from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and really useful to get that practical example of data plus digital twin and how it might be able to be used for strategic decisions, like renovating buildings in a strategic way. I think super interesting, and I think this is a good kind of segue into this thing that I would like to drill down a little bit with all of you, which is, and several of you kind of touched on this topic about the grand narratives around the smart city, the top-down application of technology, how citizens maybe in some cases are, even though they spend their whole lives on their mobile phones, are somehow not that interested in the kind of smart city technology that we are developing. How smart technology often is developed in isolation and then looking for use cases rather than starting the other way around. I think there are a number of kind of interesting things that have really come up here, and so maybe we can explore this a little bit more. Krista, you also have your hand up. I see. Do you want to respond directly to Einari, or otherwise also start thinking about this? How can we make this grand narrative of smartness more fit for purpose, more citizen focused, more useful for us?
Yeah, exactly. I would like to elaborate that, but I would start what Karlis said about the importance of pilot and demo projects, and I fully agree with him. But from the city perspective, because I have been in that role, that trying to bring innovation in the city, and I think there are very important, let's say, key elements to be successful here. And we have, I would say, like 3 challenges here internally. The first challenge is the capacity of the experts and administrators working in the city to formulate the problems and challenges. This is the first. Secondly, convincing the colleagues that they should be on board, that we have to do it together, because the challenges the cities are facing today needs complex solutions, which actually means that you have really to work across the silos, and you have to break those silos. So this convincing part is quite challenging, actually, to explain that why we need it and how this new technology would benefit that area that person is working with, not talking about the people. And the third is that the capacity not only to collect the data for decision making, but also to analyze the data. So I think these are the challenges, like internally in the city, and we really need to increase our capacity in that. And I definitely think that, for example, this one pilot project example that Einari provided, like, we learn by doing, we learn by initiating those pilots as well. But at the same time, we really have to think on how to improve the capacity of data analysis, working together, and also formulating our challenges and needs. The second thing is that the challenge is that very often when it comes to ordinary people, the smart city solutions, they don't understand them, because smartness doesn't mean ignorance. We know that accessibility for smart city solutions can be limited in terms of age and income and skills. So we have different people, and we need all of them on board. So we have target groups or stakeholders who do not understand the technology and innovation, or why we have to use them in the city. For example, I think the same example, Einari, which you provided about the energy efficiency audits, and that we are creating that platform in the city of Tallinn right now. I don't think, the ordinary people living somewhere in the city will buy it. For them, it's like they don't understand why we do it. It's a waste of money. So I think that what is important now when it comes to citizen centricity? I think important is to really find very concrete, let's say, topics or areas which are understandable for the people. I can just maybe, let's say, provide example related to Pollinator Highway we are developing in the city, which is part of 14-kilometer long green belt in the city of Tallinn. This is very concrete, it is very practical, it involves, let's say, different aspects like creating a better mobility in this area in the Pollinator Highway, creating more greenery and improving biodiversity. Then coming up with different, let's say, initiatives in order to provide better recreational, let's say, opportunities for the people. So there are a complex of different activities related to this Pollinator Highway, which are very directly related to the people and which are very understandable if we, that the need of improvement. So I think that one way is to really to bring the people around very concrete topics and then using new technologies and smart city solutions, because then I think they understand them better and then they can see very practical and concrete added value of that. For example, this Pollinator Highway I mentioned, we have been using Open the City application in order to get the proposals and ideas and feedback from the people on how we have to develop this area. We have actually also organized like face-to-face meetings and city labs, and I think this is also very important. We should not forget it. But we can use virtual reality tools in order to, show the new city or planning, spatial planning for elderly people as well, because this is what they can use, and this is the way how we can engage them by using different smart city tools. And also, as I know, Pontus, you are from Sweden. For example, in Tallinn, one of our big, let's say, strategic objective is that we would like to create green and friendly urban space. And one of its, let's say, objectives is to create 15-minute city. 15-minute city sometimes is also too abstract for the ordinary people. But maybe we should, in Tallinn, for example, and we have been discussing it, to also to use Swedish 1-minute city approach, which brings the people who are living in that one street together, older and younger people from different nationalities and different background, and then together in co-creation, trying to improve that space around them. And also by using the smart city solutions and innovation and digitalization, because I think that is the very practical and maybe the most efficient way how you can combine smartness, co-creation and sustainability together. Yeah, that was my let's say reaction or response to the previous panelists. And of course we have also like other we will open this summer participation hub, which is, let's say, physical meeting place for the people, but there we are using different digital tools to introduce and to discuss about different spatial developments and plannings in different districts of the city, or we are using, like Teemu mentioned, ArcGIS tools for involving people in democratic urban planning process. We have also participatory budgeting approach. Now it is the second time we are doing it, and of course here we are also using digital tools to allocate 1 million euro directly to those projects that citizens have proposed. And also, as Tallinn will be European Green Capital next year, and we really are full mood in preparation for this important year, we are planning, and we would like to engage more also, for example, gaming industry representatives in order to use Minecraft for co-creation together, and involving also younger generation for discussions. So this is my intensive, but I hope not too long intervention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. A lot of really interesting things there, and particularly, you know, I think about making, not being abstract, but making things practical and real for residents. I think it's really important. Who would like to build on that? Maybe I see you're nodding, Hadi. Would you like to build on these kind of discussions?
Well, yeah, so actually I agree with at least a couple of the points, especially the importance of educating people about how to basically use these services, that, let's say, these smart services. And based on my own experience, I can say that, sometimes we just label services or solutions as smart, because as soon as we start using ICT, we just say things are smart. And of course, for some people might be uncomfortable to start using those services, because maybe they start to think that, well, I don't have the expertise. This is a very strange new thing for me, so I'm not capable of using that. So that should be the first thing. We really need to educate people. We really need to very easily, in an easy way, educate them about these digital solutions, smart solutions. Then they would understand, so what is this digital thing that I'm supposed to use? And the other part is that, again, this is from my experience in software development. Usually, when you ask users to explain what they need, what their expectations, well, they have really hard time to explain. But when they see examples, let's say if we have a group of 20 people sitting in a room, and we are asking who wants to start sharing their needs or expectations, you see that some people, they are hesitant. But then as soon as they see examples, then they might actually be encouraged, or in a way get some ideas that, yeah, so I can relate to this problem. I have this other problem on top of that. So basically, user participation is important, but then at the same time, we really need to provide some sort of examples to these users, then in a way encourage them to share their ideas, and also give them some concrete examples of what we are looking for, what kind of needs and expectations we are looking for. And then the last point that I would like to share is about the title, because I talked about stakeholder-centric rather than citizen-centric or user-centric, because I think when we want to build something which is holistic, a solution which is holistic, we really need to keep in mind that there are different stakeholders in this process. So if we think about the example that Einari mentions, if I want to renovate my house, if we are planning to build a digital tool helping people to understand how they can renovate their houses, we really need to also ask from small companies that they're providing renovation services. So startups, companies that they're providing services, they're providing products, people who are in charge of issuing permits, and everyone should be involved, at least one representative of each of these stakeholder groups. But of course, the bigger group should be citizens, the end users that they will use these kind of services. So these are just a few points that I wanted to share in response.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just a reminder, we have about 7-8 minutes left. Let's go to Karlis, and then Teemu, and then finish with Einari. So if you can keep your interventions reasonably short to give everyone a chance to make a final comment, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thanks. Karlis. I didn't tend to go before more educated people go before me, but I'll try to go anyway, quite briefly. So I think that the point that Krista makes is really the key. What is the challenge? What are we trying to resolve? And it has to be a tangible dimension. Is it about friendly and human scale mobility? Is it about biodiversity? Is it, for example, bringing more recreational areas there for pedestrians? Because who do we want to see in our environment? Is it more machines? Is it more people? Do we want to make sure that we have big infrastructures running through and the pace is really fast within the city? Or do we want to slow the pace down? So you could say that addressing the complexity issue, people really may want to be part of a collaborative process and decision making, but they are really at its core, like all of us, busy with our daily lives. So we, as humans, will remain in our comfort zone. And if a process, as I referred to and heard back as well, is too complex or time consuming, there is little hope for co-creation. So it would be important to know, what are the environments that people move in, and what are the interaction tools that they actually already use? So that would be better maybe even than asking people to migrate to a completely separate tool and to adopt completely new behavioral patterns. So for me, if I live in my neighborhood, I maybe want to know, this 1 minute city concept. Where can I get my buttons back on? Where can I get my bicycle repaired? Or where can I get advice about buying the best strawberries? And currently I don't have this. And this is a real need, because now I need to travel to the other side of the town to get the answer to my question. So in fact, what I could do is to have a lot of valuable information available to me locally. It could be even from a retail shop clerk next to me who could tell me, hey, you don't have your solar PV on yet. And while I'm buying my liter of milk, they could tell me, by the way, there's a good program going on. Or it could be just a local newspaper kiosk guy. So there are 3 basic pillars that I think need to apply. And this is, first of all, it needs to be accessible, it needs to be simple, and third of all, it needs to be intuitively human.
Thank you. Yeah, very important perspective. Any reflections from you, Teemu?
Yes, sorry. Yes, in response to your question, Pontus, and on the other comments of the other panelists also, I think the big problem with this usability and people knowing how to get into the smart city solutions, how to use the devices, how to use the services, is because we are kind of in a transition position at the moment. We are still going towards the smart cities. In my opinion and vision, the smart city isn't something people use. It's something that is there and makes their life easier. It's smart when people don't have to use it anymore. Like, for example, if we are talking about mobility, say there is an automated garage that you just drive your car on a platform and it's parked automatically. You don't have to do anything. Or the street traffic lights control when you use AI and traffic analysis to actually adjust the optimization based on the traffic, and that way reduce the congestions, traffic jams. You can actually make people's life and the traffic more sustainable, more easy, more flowing. But for the people, they aren't using anything. It just is there. And that's what the smart part is, and what I see that we should aim towards.
Thank you. Yeah, important perspective. Over to you then, Einari, some closing words. We have 2-3 minutes left.
Yes, I will be just keep it very short and simple. I think very much points have been already raised by all of these speakers here that, well, in practice, what we have to tackle is that we have at the moment worked very much towards the information data to be available to make the smartness of a cities understandable for ourselves and to citizens as well. But we have got to the position now where we have a lot of data, but as Krista also mentioned, we don't have a capacity to analyze that and to work something out based on that. And this is something that we have to start to address very quickly, whether it's in the municipal level, whether it's in the governmental level, but also, of course, in the citizens level as well. And the question now is how we get there and who would be in the lead to make sense out of all of this information that is available. And this would help also to make much more sensible decisions by whether it's the citizens or by the municipalities, city leaders, but it needs some new approach in the governance and of the cities, I mean, and also maybe we have to, let's say, find also some new ways to the economic logic of all of these processes that would trigger sustainability in our societies. Today, we might not have so enough incentives yet. Okay, with the extremely high energy prices, the incentives for the energy efficiency are much more there. But still, there is a way to go how we get from this situation, say, to the level where we actually start to change our environment and to really get to the sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you. The importance of building capacity among residents, among stakeholders, users, and of course in our institutions is really important. And thank you also for getting a reference into the high energy prices. Sorry, Lil, I saw your question in the chat. We didn't get a chance to get to it. But thank you so much. Fantastic panel. I think it's been really interesting. And thank you so much to the organizers for inviting us all. And back to the studio.
Thank you. So thank you, Pontus, to all the panelists in this third panel, and big thanks to the audience and all of the three panels, all the panelists and moderators for having very active, to the point discussion related to aspects of participation and in general development of smart cities.